What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the opening series here on Sports Radio. Your direct feed from sports is Ricky K leading you into September, recapping another exciting weekend in sports. College football week 1 was in full effect. We'll give you the biggest takeaways from the weekend: a shocker in Tallahassee, a thriller in Miami, the battle of the Tigers, and we'll look ahead to ECU, North Carolina, coming up in just a few minutes. And Bill Belichick doesn't have a depth chart. He's up to his old tricks again. What to expect from tonight's game down in Chapel Hill, which is going to be a fun sight. Baseball is in September. Rosters expanded. Pennant races heating up. What were the biggest takeaways from this weekend out in baseball? And we look ahead at some key series this week that have some playoff implications. WNBA is nearing its playoffs. They're about the last full week of games is this week. The Fever took a little bit of hit in the standings, while the Valkyries moving up as well in the kind of flip-flopping spots. We'll talk Seattle Sounders winning the League Cup. Luis Suarez gets himself in more trouble again. Just crazy stuff for Inter Miami. We'll talk NWSL. We'll talk U.S. Open out in Queens. The usual tradition stays the same, but can one American break a 10-match losing streak to another player? And Coco Gauff goes down to Naomi Osaka. We'll dive into that. So much more. Join me along for the ride. Let me know who won the weekend. It's all coming up on the opening series on iSports Radio. For all sports. And thank you once again for joining me here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky K here with you on the opening series. We talked about it for the last few weeks. We have shifted from previewing stuff to recapping stuff. I think that's what's the fun part of our different shows throughout the week. Again, I want to know from you, who won the weekend? You can talk about any sport you want. Who do you feel were the big winners this weekend? You can follow us on X, TikTok, and YouTube, just at IE Sports Radio. Like and subscribe. Be sure to go to our TikTok. We got some awesome shorts that are out from all different teams, different sports. So much fun with those things going on. You can also follow me on X at Rickinator555. Just be sure to check out all that fun stuff. Again, who won the weekend? Go to YouTube, Twitch, X. I want to hear from you throughout the show. Brian Francione is here, our New England insider. Brian, welcome. Trevor Story with a weird home run today. We'll talk about the Red Sox against Cleveland a little bit later in the show. But let's start with some college football. Of course, this is week 1, kind of the table set of the weekend. We had a lot of great ranked versus ranked matchups. And I'm going to be honest, there were times when I was watching these games, I felt like some of these ranked versus ranks needed that tune-up against What's the Matter You or What's the Matter State University to get like 60 points and start feeling themselves again, because the quality was not there in some of these games. That I wish if we saw this in week 2 or week 3, that we would feel a little bit better about it. Now, that's going to be the case when we watch NFL football starting on Thursday. They're going to see games like, we're going to be glad football's back. It's going to be 16-13. We're going to be like, well, what are we watching? And then we're going to remember, hey, it's football. That's why we're watching. But the big one was out in Columbus. And shout out to Lee Corso, his last college game day. He went 6 for 6 on picks. I mean, that's going out with a bang right there. And it was a good scene in Columbus for him as Ohio State took down Texas 14-7. This is a weird football game. And I know a lot of people are going to go on X and say Arch Manning is a bust. Arch Manning is not going to be that good. And I would just say pump the brakes on a little bit. Let's remember where Texas was going into the other day. They're down 4 starters on the offensive line from last year. One of his top receivers, Emmett Mosley, didn't play. You're going on the road, his first true road start as a collegiate player. And you're facing an NFL-style defensive coordinator. Now, have a different opinion on what you will, especially when he's always got a pencil in his ear and his beard always looks weird. But Matt Patricia is a pretty good defensive coach. So you're throwing Arch Manning pro-style defensive looks. His first game on the road, noon kickoff in Columbus. What did you really expect? Ohio State's a really good football team. Now, they've got some issues themselves. Julian saying the quarterback, I thought, showed some good stuff, showed some good velocity on the fastball with his throws. Jeremiah Smith was limited. Good job by the Texas secondary really taking Jeremiah Smith out of the game. Cardinal Tate had the go-ahead touchdown. And I thought if you gave Texas one more quarter, Arch was starting to figure it out. He finally stopped thinking too much, or Sark started letting him get loose, because some of those throws at the end of the fourth quarter were actually really good. And that's why Texas got back into that game, cut it to 14-7, a touchdown by Livingstone. They just ran out of time. Because I thought Texas, as the game went on, was starting to get better. Remember, they had the goal line stance. Ohio State's been really good at these goal line stand defenses that have been a big key for them going into last year. So, to me, I'm more impressed with Ohio State than I am concerned about Texas. Now, the team you should be concerned about is the one down in Tuscaloosa. Alabama got exposed. Got exposed big time by Florida State, 31-17. Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback, 152 yards passing, 78 yards rushing, and a score. The Seminoles, as a team, ran for 236 yards. When's the last time you saw an Alabama team allow 236 yards on the ground? And this was a Florida State team that was motivated for this football game. They heard how bad people would talk about them from last year and the awful season they had. And give Mike Norvell credit. He got rid of both coordinators from a year ago. And you talk about the effect that Gus Malzahn, the OC, can have on Castellanos. It's night and day. Like, this is a quarterback who, as Brian can attest to, is pretty good at Boston College, had some good moments. Now you put him with a Gus Malzahn-like system, he's got an opportunity to thrive. And you now put the spotlight on Kalen DeBoer. Alabama's head coach keeps losing games as double-digit favorites. Nobody's really scared of Alabama anymore because Nick Saban's gone. And I think, to me, this says more on how bad Alabama is than how great Florida State is. We know Florida State's going to be improved. I'm kind of waiting for that October game with Miami to see, okay, where is Florida State really at? But Mike Norvell is a good coach, and you can't tell me that the snub from the playoffs 2 years ago didn't have an effect on this game in one way, shape, or form. I know different players, but those Florida State guys, some who were there, will probably remember that Alabama got in ahead of them and wanted to stick it to them a little bit. So props to the Seminoles getting it done at home. Then you had LSU winning the Battle of the Tigers. I actually enjoyed this game, but this is another one. I wish it was week 2 and not week 1. Cade Klubnik didn't have his top wide receiver, Antonio Williams, in this one, and it showed. Klubnik was 19 of 38 for 230 and a pick. Garrett Nussmeier on the other side, 28 for 38 for 230, had the game-winning touchdown in the fourth. Nussmeier, I thought, looked more poised, which was surprising considering it was a road game for LSU. Kane Durham, the running back, 74 yards and a touchdown. I think Brian Kelly, props to him, finally gets a win as a LSU coach in an opener. They needed it more. I think Clemson's going to be fine. I'm not going to sit here and be too concerned about Clemson. But LSU needed this one. They needed that, get that monkey off their back to really get their season catapulted to a good start, and Nussmeier held his own there. Then you went to last night, Miami. And I know we got all the jokes here in the chat about, is the U back? And Larry saying the U is fool's gold. Brian saying Miami won the weekend in college football. I'm not going to say Miami won the weekend necessarily. I think if you had to give one player who won the weekend, though, is Carson Beck. And you think about all the stuff Carson Beck threw last year, battled injuries, was inefficient. Georgia didn't really have the wide receivers that you were necessarily hoping that he would have. And he looked good last night. He made some good throws, 20 for 30, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't turn it over. Of course, helped that C.J. Daniels made that crazy Odell Beckham-like catch. Miami gets the game-winning 47-yard field goal by Carter Davis with 1:04 to go. And Reuben Bain Jr. on that defensive line, that's a dude right now, if you're looking at NFL drafts in April, if you're a team that's in the top 5, I want him. He wreaked havoc on that game the entire time. So I don't know if the U is back, but the U is going to be competitive. Mara Cristobal we talked about it on Friday, was awful against ranked teams. Last time Miami won a top 10 game was also against Notre Dame. So they still have a little bit more to prove if they're truly back. But to me, when you have a guy like Beck who has the poise, has the leadership skills, has been around big games, that isn't confused by the moment from his time at Georgia, that's a big help. And Miami was running the ball pretty well at the same time. Notre Dame had no answers in the trenches, which was kind of a surprise. You thought Notre Dame would be the better running team. And Jeremiah Love was really silenced the entire night. I was kind of surprised by that. I will give credit to CJ Carr. I thought as the game went on, he got better. And I think Notre Dame will be fine. I mean, they have Texas A&M in 2 weeks, but at least they get a bye. They can now prep some more stuff. And I thought Carr on the road, raining in the first half, it would be something where you could probably look at Notre Dame down the line and say this game will help them get better. Brian also pointing out BC had 66 points. I mean, when you play Fordham, that kind of helps, but the win's a win for Bill O'Brien. And till 2017 on X on YouTube, there's so much pressure for a first game for Arch. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think everyone's going to talk about his name is Manning. Everyone's going to talk about the hype. And I think having him sit for a while at Texas is only going to help him, not hurt him. Like, he gets to see things. And I think Texas as a team is going to get better throughout the year. I don't think it's going to be something that really they look back on this loss to Ohio State and it's going to hinder them at all. It shouldn't. I mean, again, you told any Texas probably play as poor as they could and lost 14-7. I mean, if anything, that's a blessing, not a curse. And, of course, the game going on right now in Chapel Hill. All the celebrities are there. Michael Jordan's there. I saw Blake Snell was there. I don't know why Blake Snell's on the list of celebrity list, but nevertheless, it's TCU, North Carolina. Right now, the Tar Heels scored a touchdown in the opening drive. Caleb Hood with an 8-yard run for a score. UNC up 7-0 early. And look, I'm a Pats fan. I'm intrigued by Bill Belichick getting a shot to coach in college. And this is kind of like a Deion Sanders thing. This is like a whole new football team. Bunch of transfers. You had the point where Belichick is releasing a depth chart that has nobody on it. So he's weaving in a total mystery. I was watching practice video, and there's video with no numbers on jerseys. So even nobody knows who Gio Lopez is throwing the ball to. And I'm a fan of Gio Lopez. You look at his numbers at South Alabama last year, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So he's very good in terms of not making those mistakes. TCU's going to get the ball, and you look at Josh Hoover, the quarterback on the other side, 27 touchdowns, 11 picks last year. But he was another one that got better as the year went on. 8 of his 11 interceptions were in the first 2 months of the season. So he found a way to get better. And the Horned Frogs can make some plays. So I think this is going to be a really fun game tonight. As far as North Carolina's expectations this year, I think they're a 7-8 win football team. Like, the ACC is going to give you some wins. I mean, outside of Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, SMU, I would say, is another one. The ACC, kind of in the middle. We saw Wake Forest almost lose to Kennesaw State, so you probably could throw that out there. And you also have the this till 2017 points out that you can't criticize what you don't show. That's a fair point on Belichick, because I mean, at the same time, how much of that playbook are you really going to reveal? We all know Belichick is kind of that secret mastermind, if you will, where he's going to go out there and not really show his hand too much. But I think that's the intrigue of this team, is we don't know what they are. We're going to find out kind of the same way we found out about Colorado 2 years ago. Like, we're all going to overreact to one game, whatever they do tonight, and say, this is it. Bill Belichick's going to succeed or fail in college off one game. That's not true. I do think overall he'll be a success, because I do think players will come play for him, as opposed to Belichick trying to find players who want to play for him in the NFL, especially toward the latter stages. And I think he's going to pick the type of player that's going to buy into that mindset. So I actually am a fan of what North Carolina is. But if I said player that won the week, I think it's Carson Beck. Team of the weekend, I'm actually going to go LSU. I think LSU, definitely when the AP poll comes out, they'll be more of a top 3 to top 5 team. And I think they will find a way in the SEC to be that strong team. And I really like Nussmeier as a quarterback. I think he going on the road in Death Valley and working your way to putting up points in what wasn't an easy game against a tough pass rush in Clemson. And LSU's pass rush looked better than Clemson's pass rush. It does help. And as Brian points out, Belichick did win his first game without Brady too. Yeah, I think actually when you talk about 08 with Castle, everybody brings up getting to the playoffs at Mac Jones in year one. There's a lot of stuff that Bill should take credit for as opposed, and to be fair, the end of New England wasn't pretty. He made a lot of stupid moves personnel-wise. I think Bill, the personnel guy, got in the way of Bill, the coach. Like, Bill had a tough time drafting. You're watching the Patriots now, and they have a tough time drafting as is. I mean, think about all the guys from last year's draft that aren't on the team anymore and how the rebuild for Rabel is basically a year or two behind because of that. So it all goes hand in hand. But overall, I think LSU definitely won the weekend for sure. We had a good FCS game of the week that we talked about on Friday. Lehigh beat Richmond in a very competitive conference game. That was pretty cool. And not a lot going on next week. Only one ranked versus ranked right now, Michigan against Oklahoma. I do think the Cy-Hawk battle between Iowa and Iowa State is going to be good. I think Illinois against Duke is a very interesting game. Illinois going on the road in a noon kickoff. I think that'll be a fun one. So there's a lot of stuff to keep an eye on. Although week 2 isn't pretty. Week 3, I think when you got the Florida LSUs and the A&M Notre Dames, that's when we're going to start getting to the heat of college football. But be sure to keep an eye on TCU, North Carolina throughout the night, and we'll get some updates as we go. Now let's talk baseball. Again, we're at September 1st. Today, the roster is officially expanded to 28. Now, I still wish, as we talked about on Bullpen Bulletin last week, that it was 40 players. Or at least maybe a mix. Maybe there's 30 to 35, because I do think guys should be up and get that experience, especially if you're a top prospect. Even if you're just coming in to pinch run or you're getting to be on the bench for a little bit, get that experience going in next year. I think that's valuable. But unfortunately, teams just take advantage of it and call up 10 pitchers, and it ruins the experience. So, of course, everyone's got to find a loophole. Baseball teams found a loophole. But let's look at this weekend before we look at some matchups this week, and then we'll dive into the standings toward the end. I thought the Brewers did a really good job in Toronto. They took 2 out of 3. That's a big-time statement that the Brewers made. We talk about kind of the impact that Milwaukee has. There's an all-balanced lineup when you look at Sal Frelick, when you look at Isaac Collins. And then earlier today, they took on the Phillies. And although they lost 10-8, you look at the Brewers and you're seeing an offense that can put points on the board. Bryce Terang has been heating up over the last month. William Contreras has been heating up over the past month. And they've taken advantage of a Blue Jay team that their bullpen is getting in their way. Jeff Hoffman's been a mess for them closing games. The Blue Jays were up 4-2 in the 9th today against Cincinnati, allowed 3 in the bottom of the 9th to lose that game after coming from behind to take the lead. So what was a potential World Series preview, and I was calling it the Paul Molitor series between Milwaukee and Toronto. I was very impressed with what the Brewers did north of the border and getting 2 out of 3. Other series I liked, Detroit. Tarek Skubal was excellent yesterday. They took 2 or 3 from Kansas City. Really put any hope of somebody catching the Tigers to bed. It's a 9-game lead with about 23 games to go. KC's not catching up. To me, the AL Central is officially over. Bobby Witt Jr. did have a walk-off hit on Saturday, but the Royals definitely needed some reinforcements, so they're going to call up their number 2 prospect catcher, Carter Jensen, along with activating, again, Jack Caglione. So Royals are bringing up their top guys, trying to make one more push. Right now, they are currently 3 games back of the Mariners in the wild card race. So that was a chance for KC to make a statement. They failed to do so. Cleveland hung around. They took 2 or 3 from Seattle. Mariners started to slip a little bit. Fortunately for them, they did get the win in the series finale. So they clinched a tiebreaker on Cleveland. So they've got a 4-game lead on the Guardians. Remember, there's no more 163, so it's really a 5-game lead on Cleveland. So the Guardians needed a sweep, but at the minimum, at least to stay alive, they got to 500. They took 2 out of 3. Some other highlights and over the weekend, Justin Verlander, double-digit strikeouts yesterday at age 42. It's been a rough year for Verlander. It took him till like July to get his first win. The Giants, very quietly, we'll get into this with the standings, they're still alive. Very brief chances, but they're still alive. And it's because he's pitching better. Devers has been much better. But props to Justin Verlander. The Red Sox, we mentioned on Friday, released Walker Buehler. He signed with the Phillies. Remember, teams had to sign and be on rosters by today to get somebody eligible for the postseason. So now the Phillies, if they can fix Walker Buehler, will have him on their postseason roster. Yankees took 3 of 4 from the White Sox. Aaron Judge yesterday tied Yogi Berra for the 5th most home runs in Yankees history with 358. And your standings update, which we get into, Texas. We talked about on Tuesday, kind of doom and gloom, that Nate Eovaldi was out for the year. Corey Seager as well, battling some issues. Well, Texas is won 8 out of 10, and they're won 5 in a row, and they're still in this thing. So props to the Rangers for hanging around. Some big series this week. Mets are in Detroit. Juan Soto today, a grand slam and 6 RBIs as the Mets beat the Tigers 10-8. Mets still have some pitching issues to work out, but their offense, at least if Soto's going to carry them in some of these games, it's huge. We mentioned the Phillies getting a 10-8 win over the Brewers today, so they were able to keep ground on the Mets. Red Sox get a win over Cleveland 6-4. Trevor Story had a 3-run homer that hit off Big Christmas's glove and hit the foul pole. So one of the weirdest home runs you'll see, but Trevor Story's had that kind of year for the Red Sox this year. And Aroldis Chapman, who just got the save today, who linked an extension over the weekend. And as a Yankee fan, I'm still kind of bitter at Aroldis Chapman because remember, this is the same guy who quit on the Yankees 2 years ago because he wasn't closing. Is now all of a sudden been the most dominant reliever in baseball for the Red Sox again. So that's a little bit of an issue. But Boston continues to find its way to win some games. And also from this weekend, coming up starting tomorrow, Yankees at the Astros. Yankees start a stretch of 12 straight games against playoff caliber teams. Houston, Toronto, Detroit, Boston. The Yankees have done a real good job beating some crap teams this year. Against teams over 500, they're 37-37. They need to find a way to at least get 7 or 8 of these games if they want to win the AL East. If not, they're probably going to make the playoffs, but I don't really see them doing any damage if they can't beat good teams. They've got to be able to keep themselves out of the way. So those are your series to watch this week. We'll give you some scores real quick before we dive into some standings on this Labor Day. Orioles and Padres are 3-3, bottom of the 5th. Rays are actually giving a little damage to Seattle's playoff chances. Rays are up 5-0 after the 3rd. Rangers putting that win streak on the line. They're down 2-0 to the Diamondbacks. That game just got underway. In terms of games that matter, we mentioned the Mets won. Reds beat the Blue Jays. Red Sox beat Cleveland. Astros beat the Angels, so they provide a game on Seattle if the Mariners do lose. Cubs were able to rally, beat the Braves 7-6 and 10, so they do gain ground on Milwaukee. So here's your standings. Blue Jays are 2.5 up on the Yankees and the Red Sox in the AL East. Tigers are 9 up on the Royals in the Central. Astros are 2.5 up on Seattle and 5 up on Texas. Your wild card, Yankees are your first wild card. Red Sox your second, but those are percentage points. Mariners have a 2.5 game lead on Texas for the 3rd wild card. They're 3 up on the Royals, 4.5 on Cleveland. And if Tampa Bay wins tonight, they pull within 4.5. So the Rays still with an outside chance, even though they'd be a game under 500, which also the problem here with baseball. Why we need 3 wild cards, I don't know. National League, Cubs, we'll go NL East first. Phillies with a 6-game lead on the Mets. Brewers a 5.5 game lead on the Cubs. And in the West, the Dodgers a 2-game lead on the Padres. Your wild card, Cubs will be the first wild card. San Diego the second. Mets are the third. Mets are 4 up on the Reds. Mets will play the Reds actually coming up in, I think, this weekend in Cincinnati. That's a huge series for the Reds, who disappointed themselves big time against the Cardinals. Giants are 5 back, as I mentioned. They've creeped back in it, winning 8 of their last 10. And the Diamondbacks are 6 back. So that's what you got going on in the state of baseball. And as Till 2017 says, gotta love the Yankees being the best of the worst. I mean, look at it with baseball. Like, if you beat enough bad teams, you're going to win 85 games. The Yankees right now are at 76, and they've not done anything against good teams. So this could easily be a 90 to 95 win team that just can't get out of their own way. It's just the way it is. So let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We'll talk WNBA. Talk about the Fever and the Valkyries kind of switching spots this week. We'll talk some soccer with Seattle beating Miami in Leagues Cup. We'll do some NWSL. And we'll go around the globe in 80 goals and talk about some of the other leagues across the globe and some notable action this week. You're listening to the opening series here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. We'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsors.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. eSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
And welcome back to the opening series here on eSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky K here with you. We just talked about college football and then baseball in terms of who won the weekend, but I want to hear from you, YouTube, Twitch, X. Let me know, who do you think won the weekend across all of sports? Feel free to send any of your thoughts. We had a couple of new faces in the chat today, so obviously feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about here on this show. Let's talk WNBA. And to me, the big thing this week, especially we're in our last full week of games, is going to be down to these last couple playoff spots. Now, the big flip to me was between Indiana and the Valkyries. Now, Indiana played two key games this week. They beat the Sparks on Friday 76-75, which was absolutely huge, considering the Sparks have so many games still to play that the Fever had to get a win. Odyssey Sims actually had the game-winning basket with 13 seconds left. Now, why that was interesting is that Odyssey Sims was cut by the Sparks back in July. So you talk about Odyssey Sims getting revenge on her former team. That was a big thing for Indiana. They desperately needed that win, and they were able to find a way to do that. Last night, not so much. They were down in Golden State, taking on the Valkyries, and the Valkyries were able to pick up a 75-63 win. Ileana Rupert had 21 points, 5 of 8 shooting from three-point range. Golden State, with that win, went from 8th in the standings to 6th, and Indiana dropped down to 8th. Now, remember, top 8 still get in, and we haven't seen a lot of Caitlin Clark. She's been banged up. The Pacers of the Fever, so many injuries this year. If they get in the playoffs, it would be great. I don't know if they're going to do damage, especially if you play Minnesota in the first round, but begs the chance what they could do. Indiana's going to go out to Phoenix, play the Mercury on Tuesday. That's going to be a big game. But when you look at the WNBA standings right now, I got to think the Fever are going to be safe. And the reason I say that is you look at, there's only, as I said, a full week left of games. So there's not really much chance that anybody else has to gain ground. The standings right now, Indiana is 8th. Seattle is a game, LA is a game back in the loss column, 2 total. Indiana's played 40 games. LA's played 38. Seattle right now is in that 7th spot at 22-19. Your scores tonight, Atlanta did beat Connecticut. The Lynx are beating the Wings. And a big one tonight, Sparks and Storm coming up at 10 Eastern NBA TV. So that's a big game for both those teams. Sparks definitely. They got to find a way to win. Liberty are at the Valkyries Tuesday night, 10 Eastern. We'll get to them in a second. Sparks will play the Dream twice. So very tough stretch for LA here. Seattle and 2 games with Atlanta. Can they find a way to split or get both? And then the Lynx will play the Aces Thursday night, 10 Eastern on Prime Video. That's the top 2 teams in the WNBA, maybe a finals preview. What was real interesting to me this weekend was the Liberty. Now, we all know the Liberty have had their ups and downs this year. They've had a lot of injuries, so many to count. You look at Sabrina Nescu's battled some injuries. Jonquil Jones has been out. Stewie just came back. Natasha Cloud's been out. So many things they've had to battle with this season. And Brianna Stewart said some things after Saturday's loss to the Mercury, and they lost that game 80-63. Third time they lost to Phoenix this year. They got outscored 43-24 in the second half. And Brianna Stewart said after the game, this courtesy of Lucas Kaplan from Swish Theory, this is not championship level basketball at this point, and everybody needs to recognize that and understand we need to get there. And that starts with mindset and then putting it on the court. She's basically saying her team does not have the same competitive drive. And to me, that's a problem. It's a problem because the Liberty, I get it, they're the defending champions, but you added Natasha Cloud in that mix to kind of have something different. You've seen Emma Messiman play better. Stephanie Talbot's played better. Like, they've established some role players, but where's the urgency? I mean, you have a Liberty team right now that would be in the 4-5 matchup with Phoenix, who they've lost to 3 out of 4 times. And then if they win that series, they're going to play the Lynx again, who they've lost to 3 out of 4 times. And I get it. A lot of those Minnesota games are without Brianna Stewart, and they're 19-8 when she plays. But you can't rely on one star when a team is built with 3 stars. This is supposed to be a super team. You got to find a way to find that urgency, whether you can manufacture it or not. That's a major problem when your star is starting to call out the rest of the team. And that's a good thing that she did that, but that to me is the bigger underlying thing. It's not that Sandy Brondello, maybe she could do it a little more publicly, but we all know about coaches and players. It's a little bit interesting. We'll see. And Joey Jets is here. He's still hyped about the Canes win. You should be. That was a fun, like you said, that was a fun game last night against Notre Dame. And I think both teams really held their own in that one, did a pretty good job. And Till 2017 says, it isn't just Caitlin that's hurt. They do have a lot of injuries to their guard depth. I think that's been a big thing for Indiana. That's why they got Odyssey Sims in the first place, is they've got to find a way to kind of manufacture some stuff. And as I said, just getting to the playoffs, I think would be a good thing for Indiana. I don't expect them to do anything of a significant note when they get into the playoffs. That's going to be a whole different story entirely. So that's what you got to watch from WNBA this week. I think the Liberty have to try to find it, but we'll see if something changes there. Let's go to the MLS. Seattle taking down Miami in Leagues Cup. That was the big one last night. Seattle Sounders getting a 3-0 victory. Now, this game was in Seattle, and with that win, the Sounders are the first team in North America to win every cup possible. They won MLS Cup as a franchise. They won the CONCACAF Champions. Now they've won Leagues Cup, and this is a team that's just gotten better ever since FIFA Club World Cup. They didn't advance the knockout stage like Miami did, but they found a way to do things in other ways that makes it very impressive. And they got out of the gate strong and didn't look back. Azazi De Rosario scored in the 26th minute. Second half, they got a penalty shot from Alex Rodin, and Paul Rothrock added on the third goal late towards stoppage time. Miami had their chance in the second half, but Lionel Messi missed a shot off the crossbar. So when you look at Messi trying to get more trophies, he still has yet to win a big trophy with Miami. Yes, I know last year they were the top team in the regular season, but they didn't win anything of note in the postseason. And you had more controversy last night. Luis Suarez doing what Luis Suarez does. And you saw last night he spit on a Seattle security guard. There was a fight after the game. And we all remember Suarez in history of biting players. And I know this isn't an MLS thing because this wasn't officially an MLS match, but something's got to happen to Luis Suarez. He needs a lengthy suspension because this guy's a sore loser. This guy doesn't know how to lose. This guy really just acts like really one of the worst human beings possible. How do you even think to do something like that toward a security guard? We've even had the issue with the players before, as you mentioned, with the biting, but to spit on somebody who's not directly involved in the game, spit on anybody in general, but spit on a security guard is absolutely ridiculous. But Miami can't handle losing. And I think that's an issue in itself. And that's one that maybe, like, when you look at these teams trying to challenge them, that's a problem. So I give a lot of credit to Seattle. Props to them. They get a huge win. And you tip your cats. Other results in MLS this week: Philly getting a 1-0 win over Cincinnati. Bruno Damiani with his 6th goal of the year. Since he's been in a rough spot, they've lost 3 of their last 4 at home. Red Bulls get a key shutout against Columbus, but it's 0-0. And here's the problem for the Red Bulls. They're right now in the position for a playoff spot. They have 5 games left, but 3 are on the road, and one of them is round 2 of the Hudson River Derby between NYCFC. So a lot of tough games for the Red Bulls to end the season. We'll see if they can keep their streak of consecutive playoff years alive. Minnesota and Portland on Saturday was a 1-1 draw. Robin Ladd got a late goal for Minnesota. And then last night, San Diego putting up a 2-1 win over LAFC. Irving Lozano tied the game at 1 in the 33rd minute. And Anders Dreyer, who's been big for the San Diego expansion team this year, he scored in the 66th minute. So San Diego gets a win in that one. Your NWSL update: Gotham got a big win, 2-0 over Orlando. Esther Gonzalez picked up her 12th goal of the year. Gotham desperately needed that one. Seattle and San Diego played to a 0-0 draw. And Kansas City keeps winning, folks. 15-1-2 on the year. They got a 2-0 win over the North Carolina Courage. How about the big upset of the weekend? This is a team who won the weekend right here. The Utah Royals picked up just their 2nd win of the season. They are 2-5-11. They went on the road to Portland, a place where hardly anybody wins in NWSL, and they got a 2-1 win. So props to Utah. Find a way to get things done. Just a huge win for them. And as Larry says, Suarez, sore loser, no excuses. Absolutely not. And this is one where the MLS has got to crack down and really put a lengthy suspension on the board, or somebody in soccer has got to put a lengthy suspension on the board. So we're going to debut a different segment on the show. We're going to call it Around the Globe in 80 Goals. Now, I'm not going to do 80 goals, but we're going to take a look at some other action across the globe and some key soccer leagues. And let's start in the Premier League. It was a big matchup this weekend, Liverpool against Arsenal. Arsenal trying to take down the Premier League champions, but Liverpool just finds a way to get that dramatic goals. We've seen it against Newcastle, and we saw it here. Dominic Zabolsky scored on a free kick in the 83rd minute to keep Liverpool undefeated. They won 1-0. We had some shockers. Brighton ended up beating Man City 2-1. They scored both goals in the second half. Pep Guardiola's club has lost back-to-back games. It is early, and one of them was to Tottenham, but not really everything so rosy for Man City to begin the year. Tottenham had its own issues. They couldn't recover from that big win. They lost 1-0 at home to Bournemouth. And Man City, you talk about a team that needed a win because their coach looked like he was going to get fired by Christmas if they didn't. Bruno Fernandes gets a much-needed goal, a penalty kick goal late to get a 3-2 win over Burnley. Burnley was very competitive in this one, and there's still a lot of issues for Man United, but they found a way to bounce back and got a much-needed win there. Some other leagues to note in Serie A in Italy, Udinese picked up a big road upset over Inter Milan 2-1. In La Liga, Vinicius Jr. came back in the lineup for Real Madrid, and they got a 2-1 win over Mallorca. He got a goal in that one, so Real Madrid is 3-0 early in the season. Barcelona had a draw in their match over the weekend as well. In Ligue 1, PSG, well, they're always dominant, but Jean Neves had a hat trick as they picked up a 6-3 win over Toulouse. They are 3-0 this year. And in Bundesliga, Bayern Munich is 2-0. They picked up a 3-2 win over FC Augsburg. So that's your latest in terms of soccer. Let's take one more time out, hear from the great Larry B. And when we come back, we'll wrap up this episode talking some U.S. Open. A lot of big stuff going on in Flushing Meadows and Queens. We'll talk some auto racing, some big events for playoffs. IndyCar season's over. Formula One, a major hit in the standings potentially. And we'll give you a little bit of glimpse into the weekend in terms of what games I'm going to be looking forward to in week 1 of the NFL season, which begins on Thursday. Maybe we'll talk some Micah Parsons. I'll see how I feel. You're listening to the opening series on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all this sports. We will wrap up the opening series after this.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the opening series here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We've had a great show so far. We're going to set to wrap up the 10th edition of this, and thank you all for tuning in as we have a new era here on opening series. Adam Karnik usually is here. Hopefully be back in the future, but we'll also have you guys as well in the chat, YouTube, Twitch, X. Let me know your thoughts on who won the weekend in sports. Been a couple of submissions so far. Let's dive into the tennis at Flushing Meadows, the last Grand Slam of the year, the U.S. Open. We do have some action going on right now as we speak. Actually, one of the matches wrapped up, so we'll dive into that. But the big thing from today was the epic matchup that was set to take place at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Women's fourth round, Naomi Osaka, the 23 seed against Coco Gauff, the 3 seed. Of course, those two played a couple years ago. Osaka beat her in straight sets, and that was Coco's first big thing after she had that big run at Wimbledon. She was the talk of the town in the United States. And Osaka has had her ups and downs. She's a 2-time U.S. Open champion. She took it to Coco 6-3, 6-2. I wasn't surprised Osaka won. I was surprised she won as much as lopsided as she did. Now, Coco, we talked about it the last couple of weeks here on the network, had changed coaches right before the slam. She hadn't had the best results leading in. She had talked during the first portion of this tournament about the nerves she was feeling, and you could sense a lot of the pressure she had. And Osaka, to me, looked like the more composed player in this match. She was in complete control, and she's playing with house money right now. You would never want to underestimate a Grand Slam champion, and Osaka is that. So I think she's going to be one of those players. It'll be real interesting to watch over the next couple of rounds. Can she get back to a final and get a win? It's been a rough tournament for the Americans. I mean, Jessie Pegula is still alive. We'll get into her quarterfinal match tomorrow in a bit. The U.S. men have had some tough losses. Francis Tiafoe going down in the third round. Ben Shelton, who looked like one of the guys that could win this tournament, ends up retiring in his match against Adrian Manarino in the third round due to a shoulder injury. That was big. Tommy Paul losing a 5-set match to Bublik the other night in round 3. That was a tough one. The biggest tough break, though, was Taylor Townsend. She took over the city the other night. She had the big upset, whatever, the 5-seed Mira Andreeva. And yesterday she was playing Barbara Krejcikova, who Jessie Pegula was going to play in the quarterfinals. And she had, I think it was 8 match points in the second set tiebreak. And she couldn't close the deal. Krejcikova made some great points. She won 15-13 the tiebreak and ended up winning in the third set. So that's a tough loss for Townsend, who was set to have a really huge week this week in New York. She had a great run. Props to her, but just that run coming to a close there. Your matches that went underway today: Felix Auger-Aliassime, a 25 seed, upset Andre Rublev, the 15 seed, 7-5, 6-3, 6-4. Aliassime beats Zverev the round before, so this is a guy who can get to quarters and semis and majors. He's got a good shot to really go on a deep run here. Jannik Sinner, he just played, and he ended up winning his match in 1 hour and 21 minutes. For a fourth round, that's really impressive. 6-1, 6-1, 6-1 over Bublik. A lot of people thought Bublik could maybe give a little bit of a scare to Sinner. That just did not happen. Alex de Minaur earlier today, the 8 seed, beating Riedel from Switzerland in straight sets. Iga Swiatek, the 2 seed in the women's side, 6-3, 6-1 over Alexandrova. Lorenzo Musetti, the 10 seed in the men's side, beat Munar from Spain in straights. And Karolina Mukova, she beat Venus Williams in the first round, the 11 seed. She moves on to the quarters. She beat Kostyuk from Ukraine, the 27 seed, in 3 sets, 6-3 in the third. So your matches, and there's one's going to come tonight. It's an Amanda Anisimova against Beatrice Haddad Maia from Brazil. If Anisimova wins, the American, she'll take on Swiatek in the quarters. Remember, Swiatek beat her love in Wimbledon final. So you can't tell me that would have an effect in some way, shape, or form if those two play again. So your quarterfinals for tomorrow. Jessie Pegula, the 4 seed against Krejcikova. Pegula didn't have a great summer. So for her to get back to the quarter, she's defending her U.S. Open finals points from last year. She'll be the hometown favorite in that one. Of course, you don't recognize the name. Her family owns the Bills. So that, if you recognize the last name, that does make some sense. Then it'll be Lehecka from the Czech Republic, the 20 seed on the men's side against Carlos Alcaraz and his shaven haircut, the 2 seed from Spain. Right now, it's tough for me to think that it's not Sinner against Alcaraz in the final on Sunday. Those two are just playing a completely different level right now. It doesn't seem like they've even been tested in this tournament. I don't really see them getting that much of a test at all, or a scare at least. Maybe they'll get tested, but they won't get scared by an opponent. And then the night session, Arina Sabalenka, the 1 seed against Vondrousova. Vondrousova's scary. Remember, she's a past Wimbledon champion. She beat Rybakina last night in 3 sets, and Rybakina was one of those players that could be a sneaky U.S. Open winner. So Vondrousova's going to be a tough player for Sabalenka to knock down, but we'll see if she can do it. And then the big one on Ash to end the night, Novak Djokovic against Taylor Fritz, the last American man standing. Now, the winner of this match is going to have a tough time because they're going to have to beat Alcaraz and Sinner probably to win the U.S. Open. But this is a huge match for Taylor Fritz. Taylor Fritz is 0-10 in his career against Novak. 0-10. Now, Novak has been really good in this tournament. Now, he's had a set or two where he's been off, but at 38 years old, he's still been really good. But this is where the American male needs a win like this. This is where if you're Taylor Fritz, you want to be the next guy to win a slam. I know it's going to take a tall order to win all 3. I'm not expecting Taylor Fritz to win this U.S. Open. This is the kind of match Taylor Fritz has got to win. We saw it too much over the years where Andy Roddick couldn't beat Roger Federer. Then we would see Sam Querrey get taken down and Francis Diaco get taken down. And all these American men can't seem to win these big matches. Taylor Fritz needs this one. And you hope that the crowd gets on Fritz's side and at the same time make Djokovic feel like the enemy. Because Novak loves to kind of feed off the crowd energy in that one. So I'm really intrigued that against the night match tomorrow night. I think it's we'll probably start around 8:30, 9 p.m. Eastern. So grab your cup of coffee because that could be about a 3.5 hour long match. But it's going to be a lot of fun if you stay with it. Moving over to auto sports, Chase Briscoe getting the win last night in Darlington at the Southern Cookout Southern 500. Briscoe was dominant. He led 309 out of the 367 laps. He was defending champion here last year, so he clinched his spot in the round of 12. Remember, there's going to be 2 more events before we go to 12. So key to lock down those playoff spots if you can, and Briscoe does that. Tough break for Josh Berry last night. He ended up crashing on the opening lap and ended up finishing 38th, so that did not help his chances. There are some notables still on the bubble. Joey Logano, Austin Dillon. So we'll see if some of those drivers can get a win next week and keep their hope alive. Somebody who did keep their hope alive as the season came to an end in IndyCar was Joseph Newgarden. Newgarden picked up the win yesterday at the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix in Nashville, the series finale. He not only snapped a 20-race drought going back to August of last year. With that win, Newgarden has won at least 1 race in each of the last 11 years. Hard to find that consistency in racing as a whole, but you got to give credit to Newgarden and find a way to win. Really, the only thing that was different in the drama for IndyCar because Alex Palou already won the title. He came in second yesterday. Was going to be who was going to win Rookie of the Year. And Lewis Foster ends up winning Rookie of the Year by 2 points because Foster was 20th, but Robert Schwartzman, who was also competing, only finished in 14th. So one of the closest races in Rookie of the Year history, and Foster's getting the win there. By the way, Newgarden gets now his 32 career wins. That ties Al Unser Jr. for 9th on the all-time wins list. So props to Newgarden. He finds a way to get it done, and that concludes the IndyCar season. So I'll have one less racing event here on the network. Meanwhile, Formula One, the Dutch Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri, of course, gets another win, and that's no surprise. We've seen Piastri and Lando Norris all share the title this season, and Max Verstappen came in second, so at least he bounced back. But Lando Norris, he got himself in a little bit of a mess yesterday. He ends up having to retire during the race with 7 laps left due to what looked to be an oil leak, and then his engine stopped working. Now, that could be big later in the year. If he gets one of those, he could get a grid penalty if the engine damage continues. So that's a big thing for Norris's car, and it also increased Piastri's lead to 34 points. So something to monitor there. Isaac Hadjar came in third yesterday because of that Norris issue with his car. Hadjar picked up the first podium of his career. So when you normally see the same 3 or 4 drivers every weekend on the podium, it's always good when you get some new faces there. So Hadjar gets it done at the Dutch Grand Prix. And then the NHRA Nationals, that ended up taking place in Indianapolis today. We had some interesting winners in that. The Cornwall Quality Tools NHRA US Nationals. Gage Herrera won the Pro Stock Motorcycle title for his 26th career win. Dallas Glenn won the Pro Stock Car title. Austin Prock won a Funny Car title. Back-to-back wins for him, his 19th career win. Tony Stewart, he won the Top Fuel. And he did have some records get set. Erica Enders, she won her race, her 50th career win. So congratulations to Erica. And we had a record with Brittany Force. She set the national speed record for the fastest pass in NHRA history, 343.5 miles per hour. So a heck of a run by Brittany Force in that one. So congrats to all those winners out in Indianapolis. Talking with Larry B earlier today, this is one of the crown jewels in NHRA racing. This is the equivalent to the Daytona 500 in NASCAR, the Indy 500 in IndyCar, of course. So this is one of those ones you circle on the calendar for an NHRA fan. So hopefully it was a great time for all involved. And last but not least, since we're a opening series looking ahead to the week, of course, it's football. Thursday, we get started for Rio, the Cowboys and the Eagles. Look, I'm not shocked that Micah Parsons gone. I'm shocked he's a Packer. I'm shocked that Jerry Jones decided to deal him away in the conference and only gets his 2 first-round picks. Like, you should have did that back in March. I know they got Kenny Clark as well, but could have got something better. Could have dealt in the AFC team and got a little bit more. I don't know. And I think that's going to wreak havoc for Dallas on Thursday against Philly. Eagles are going to have a nice celebration, I think. But here are 2 or 3 games that I like to keep an eye on. One would be Texans and Rams. This is interesting because you got Houston playing with a new-look offensive line, Laramie Tunsil now in Washington. How does C.J. Stroud do? That was a big thing for Houston last season. Stroud not having enough protection. Texans will have more expectations against a Ram team that Matthew Stafford hasn't practiced much. He's battling stuff with the back. Can his back hold up? And against a really strong Texans defense, Rams right now favored by 3.5. I think that's a really fun game. Ravens-Bills, that's your Sunday night football game. The Mark Andrews drop game. I think this one is bigger for Lamar than it is for Josh Allen. Bills are favored right now by 1.5. I would not be shocked this matchup happens in the playoffs in the AFC. But Baltimore usually wins these regular season ones, and the Bills end up winning the postseason anyway. So hopefully you get an entertaining game there. Your last one I'm going to monitor, there's a tough, I'm between 2 for this one. Lions, Packers, we talked about though with Parsons. I think that's going to be fun. Parsons, of course, dealing with some back stuff. Hopefully he gets to play. The other one I'm intrigued by is the Steelers and the Jets. Now, I think when you look at this game, it's obviously the battle of the quarterbacks that used to play for the other team, Aaron Rodgers against Justin Fields. This is a springboard game for the team that wins. If you're Pittsburgh and you win with Aaron Rodgers and he has a good game, you're feeling good about yourself. Yeah, but if the Jets win this game and the home opener and they play Buffalo week 2, so the Jets need a split somewhere. This is going to be a real test of what Aaron Glenn's culture is, because the Jets are going to need a team win, not as much a Justin Fields win. If the Jets can not turn the football over, don't commit a lot of penalties, play a clean game, run the football, I think they'll be fine. My loser game of the week, and that is the game I don't recommend watching unless there's nothing else on, is Arizona and New Orleans. I mean, the Saints starting Spencer Rattler. I'm not really sold the Saints should be starting Spencer Rattler, but it is what it is. And the Cardinals, I don't really know what the Cardinals, man. Like Kyler Murray, when is enough going to be enough of Kyler Murray? No, neither of these teams I expect to really do anything. Arizona's favored by almost a touchdown. I think there's other games on your screen for Arizona. I'm not really looking at anything else. So that'd be my flip the channel game of the week. If you want to know the other one I was interested in turning off, it's Miami and Indy. Miami is only favored by like a point. Oh, Indy's actually favored by a point. And Daniel Jones against Tua, not really buying that. It's not a matchup I want to watch. And Brian must have Caleb Johnson on his fantasy team. He's real interested in seeing what he's going to do. Jaylen Warren, by the way, earlier today picked up a 2-year contract extension from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The other injury news of note, Najee Harris sounds like he's going to be able to go Friday when the Chiefs play the Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's a big one for the Chargers. They need that one. This isn't a Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs got to win. It's the Chargers. And Brian said it. Alvin Kamara is either going to have a 4-touchdown game or 12 carries for 18 yards. I'm finding a lot out about Brian's fantasy team just solely from his comments. Maybe he's in one of those like guillotine leagues or something. I've learned about this. I'm really intrigued by the guillotine league style. I've never seen this. I'm probably going to sign up for one of those because I think that is that's a different format that is fun to watch. And so to me, it's who overall won the weekend? I'm going to still go LSU. I think that Brian Kelly winning the weekend, because now he has to stop answering questions about can his team finish games, can his team win against a big non-conference opponent. They did that. Garrett Nussmeier showed a lot. So I think LSU won the weekend for sure. And your final update of the night, I'll give you one more update on the game going on in Chapel Hill between TCU and North Carolina. TCU with a 10-7 lead, that game in the second quarter. TCU got a touchdown from Josh Hoover, a 27-yard score in the first quarter. You mentioned Josh Hoover can sling the ball. He's got 94 yards and 11-13, so he's playing some good football early on to begin this one. So it should be a fun finish in that one. So that's our show for tonight. The opening series is in the book. Matchups to be said. Week 2, not a lot of great matchups. But should have some fun along the way there. We have, of course, the NFL in full effect starting on Thursday. Getting those fantasy teams going. Getting those survivor pools in. Some fun matchups. I don't think Thursday's going to be competitive, but maybe Friday is. In Brazil, we get football Thursday, Friday, college Saturday, NFL Sunday, NFL Monday, might be Bears. McCarthy and Caleb Williams. I got Caleb Williams in a few weeks. I'm going to do something this year. Baseball, we got pennant races. Even Tuesday, the Bolton, Mike Adam will be back tomorrow. We'll look ahead to we only got 4 more Tuesday baseball shows until the postseason. So a lot of pennant races still being in effect. MVP races on the line. We'll dive into that coming up tomorrow. WNBA, just one more full week, then a few games next week, and then we get started with the postseason there. Soccer MLS is winding down, and WSL is winding down. We had the Ryder Cup picks we made the team Europe. Remember, the end of the month is the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black at Long Island. And if you have not watched a Ryder Cup, and you say to yourself you're not a golf fan, I don't care. Watch the Ryder Cup. It's fun. The crowd's rowdy. They fool the other golfers, especially the U.S. crowd. It is fun. U.S. Open out in Queens this week is a Sinner against Alvarez, and men's final is probably going to be my women's pick earlier with Iga Swiatek. I'm going to stick with that, although I'm really that Osaka part of the draw is real interesting if she can make a run here in these last couple of rounds and even get herself a third U.S. Open title. Thanks to our sponsor, of course, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. You can use the code ISR, get 15% off of your gym wear for mental health research. Follow us on X, TikTok, YouTube at IE Sports Radio. Like and subscribe. Thanks to all those in the chat tonight. Thanks to Brian. Thanks to Larry. Thanks to Seattle 2017. Was in the chat. He was having fun. So Larry B, for all of it at IE Sports Radio. I'm with you, Dave, saying a great rest of the week. See you next week.